Okay, all three of your children have autism, two older or homeschooled. Youngest, severe autism, is close to aging out of early intervention. Plan on transitioning him to public preschool when he turned 3 days a week. Um, okay, the one thing that I would maybe, okay, his third birthday is August 8th. Um, yeah, I have plenty of recommendations. All right, this is how this rolls. Now, usually that transition from early intervention over to the 3-year-old IEP happens 6 months prior to the third-year-old birthday. All right. The whole reason for that is so that the school system and the parent has plenty of opportunity to sit there and thoroughly evaluate in order for the school district to know exactly what that child needs, from least restrictive environment to services to accommodations to everything. Why is that so important? Guys, that 3-year-old IEP or that initial IEP, if your child ends up being evaluated at 4 or let's say 6, that first IEP is really the most critical IEP of them all. Now, why is that? Because that's where the threshold of a free and appropriate public education is set. That becomes your floor. And if they get it wrong at that level, which they frequently do because a lot of schools half-ass that transition from early intervention over to that 3-year-old IEP or that 4-year-old IEP, they go through bare minimums. There's some school systems that they will put, let's say, a speech language pathologist in charge of that evaluation process instead of a multi-professional team so that they cover all bases. That's wrong. These are all preventable issues, but it needs to be a thorough evaluation. And that 6 months is so that they have that regular time period to fully understand the child and to make an offering of a free and appropriate public education. It's different than what the school's required to do once your child hits compulsory education age, where truancy is there. Prior to that, they're making an offering of FAPE. They're not providing FAPE. They still have to provide FAPE, but when you're making an offering, that means that you're negotiating with the parent based upon the parent's schedule, based upon what the parent is able to do. That doesn't mean that it absolves the school system of their requirement to make a full offering of what they believe that the child requires in order to receive a free and appropriate public education, based upon the thoroughness of the evaluations, what our knowledge is of the peer-reviewed scientifically based approaches for your child's disability needs. That's what an offer is. But because your child exists outside of the compulsory education and what a normal traditional school would look like, which like in the kindergarten or first grade, it's at whatever 8 to 3, for example, that would be the mandated time that your child would need to be at school if you're enrolled in public education. Okay, for preschool and prior to that compulsory education age, there's flexibility there. And because there's flexibility there, the school system has a legal duty to make a FAPE available. All right. And that may not look like what the parent believes that the needs are. It should be notated, though, by the school system that this is what the full offering looks like. That protects the school system. If the parent says, you know what, I work and, instead of 5 days a week like you guys are offering based upon the evaluations and what those are showing that my child needs, I'll take 2 days a week. And you just notate it that we made a full offering, but the parent opted for 2 days a week. And guess what? The school system would be indemnified from a due process case because they made the offer available and the parents chose a different delivery of those services based upon the family needs. That's the difference between a 6 to 21-year-old IEP where compulsory education starts and that preschool kindergarten flexibility that exists. Okay. Many schools don't do that though. What do they do instead? Like I said, they do a half-ass evaluation process, find the kid eligible, and then try to fit the child into their predetermined offerings. Or they sit there and they ask the parent, well, what do you want? Oh, I noticed the kid goes to daycare. What if we just provide some drop-in parachute services and do some angel, some fairy dust sprinkling of services? Well, if the evaluations told you the child required something completely different, then that's on you. I know a lot of schools, and we have these cases all the time, that they'll sit there and they'll go, well, the child's natural environment. I don't care what the child's natural environment was. It's pertinent, but at the end of the day, least restrictive environment is still determined by the team at the end of the IEP meeting based upon what the child requires, what the evaluations tell the team. So you don't start it with where the child is existing. So if the child was staying home and the parent had no idea, and let's say the parent is a stay-at-home parent, you don't sit there and design services for stay-at-home if the evaluations tell you that the child needs a full offering of services. Schools are flipping that. So in your particular situation, are using this COVID thing, and I'm not saying it's not legit, guys, as far as the school closures, it happened. Okay, that's our reality. At the same time, do I know definitively that here in the next week or so that Alabama is going to be loosening the restrictions and that evaluations will be able to start up, that services will begin, summer services included in some capacity? Absolutely. Now, and that includes June, and that includes younger ages. And so if that's the case, then your situation changes dramatically, because if your child turns 3 on August 8th and they want to start the evaluations on August 7th, no. The rules say that your child is supposed to have an IEP in place and ready to go so that FAPE is made available on the first day of your child's 3rd birthday. And if the state of emergency is lifted and they have the proper time period to be able to fulfill that, which they will, in my viewpoint, and they don't do it and they kick the can until August, I mean, that's bad. That puts them in a precarious legal situation because they would have denied your child's right to a free and appropriate public education, thus entitling your child to compensatory services, because it's going to take them at least 60 days, potentially 90 days for you to have an IEP developed in order to receive those services. That's a quarter. That's 3 months that your child is lost with regards to services. Yet we're about to get into the summer where they have sufficient time in order to make that determination. And because they have that 60 days during the summer, and we know that things are going to be different this summer, there's a difference between a 9-month employee. You also got to remember that, and a 12-month employee for a school system. And every school system, when it comes to special education, are going to have 9-month employees. And also, most of the staff are 9-month employees, like teachers, but they're going to have 12-month employees that work year-round, because special education is year-round. So administrators, there's also going to be some psychometrists, school psychologists, people of that nature that will be employed during the summer to do this kind of stuff. Now, if they're backlogged, which they're going to be backlogged, there's plenty of clinical psychologists in your area that can help the district catch up and can have some of these things farmed out to be completed so that the school stays in compliance. And there is absolutely no reason why your school system cannot stay on track so that your child has an IEP on the first day of his third birthday. So I would go back to them, and I would, if you want to, you can sit there and say, hey, James Galini said, all right, your school district is very familiar with me. And you can sit there and say you asked him a question because you're trying to become a better advocate for your child. And this is what he said. And you can do it in a nice, I mean, everybody should do it in a nice way, but I'm just saying that you should let them know that you just didn't stumble across this information and that you got this information from a reliable source. All right. And what I hope that will do is bump you up past this August 7th, plan to start the evaluations at that point. They can do it during the summer. And it sounds like to me that it would not be difficult for them to do even the bare minimum in order to find your child eligible under developmental disability, which is going to be an easy category. Now, do I think that they should at least find him eligible under developmental disability? I think I made an assumption. Okay. While they're doing like the ADOS and the other aspects of what you need for an autism categorization, I mean, he can hold the developmental disability until 9, but I just think it would be more appropriate to get it classified as it's needed. And I can tell you right now, if your son is in a severe category, then the scientific information from the National Academy of Sciences in their booklet, and you can print it off free. You can get one PDF free copy from their website if you Google National Academies of Sciences, and the study is called Educating Children with Autism. So if you Google Educating Children with Autism and National Academies of Sciences, then their PDF, and it's about 77 pages, they'll allow you to save a copy of it, and you can save your PDF copy and you can refer to it. But that recommends a full-time, at least a 20-hour a week program, and that's considered a full preschool program with a mix of neurotypical peers or neurotypically developing peers, and then kids with IEPs. So it should be a 50-50 mix in a preschool environment like that. You should be getting at least, I'm going to put it out there, 3 days a week of speech language intervention. Occupational therapy should be in there. And if they try to do speech language in some kind of, like I said, parachute group, in which they like to do in preschool, don't agree. Depending on the level of the child, a lot of kids can benefit from the group involvement, but your child's not at that level, so your child needs one-to-one intervention. And then shoot for the goal later of having that benefit of being able to model. But I don't know if we're at that. I'm just throwing it out there because I have a child, or I had a child at that age. So that's what I would do. But I mean, you might need to come back to me and ask questions. And if they sit there and they tell you, hell no, we're sticking with this August 7th date, then let me know, because I think that your child should stay on track. They just lost a couple months within that 6-month transition time frame, but there's absolutely no excuse if the state of emergency is lifted by and large, and it will be. There's going to be plenty of time to get this done so that they can remain in compliance on your son's on the law. Okay.